What is up, people? We are back.
New music.
We got some good music. We're vibing out today. Hey guys, we're about to have we got some really good topics, as you see. Kenya says, like for the algorithm. Aunt Cindy says, good evening, everyone. It's good to be back with my country peeps. Amen. As you see to I guess that would be to the left of me on your screen, we have some wonderful topics lined up. When God says no, it's going to be our first one. We're going to be covering wicked hearts. How do we change wicked hearts? Addressing wicked hearts. We're also going to be talking about and touching on the mental health crisis. Could it be solved? We have a wonderful article by NPR that's actually from 2017, but we think it's relevant today, so we're going to dive into it. And then also the U.S. women's national team, that's referring to the soccer team, gets paid big despite, they lost pretty early in the World Cup, but they're going to be taking home more than they actually generated. So we're going to dive into that as well. I don't see any more comments. How are you doing, Kenya?
I'm doing well. How about you, Josh?
I'm doing well as well. I'm excited for this show. I'm excited to be back, getting on, somewhat of a normal schedule. We just played a pickleball tournament yesterday.
Yes, we did.
So tell the people how that went, how you're feeling after that.
Okay, so we won the first 3 games.
It came out strong.
Yeah, we went out strong. Lost the last 2, so we weren't able to make it into, I guess, the brackets. That's what you would call it.
No, we didn't make it to the medal rounds.
To the medal rounds, yes.
Yeah.
So
we made the bracket.
Okay. Because
we were the 2nd seed on our pool.
Yes.
Because the only team we lost to was the team that, I guess, went undefeated or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we lost to, I guess, the 3 seed on their side.
Gotcha. But yeah, so that was a little disappointing, not gonna lie. I was a little upset. But it was good. It was our first tournament. It was fun. Yeah.
Guess we got to work on our stamina because we started off strong and then,
tired.
Just kind of whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah, like I was telling you, like my leg cramped up at one. I was trying to catch something, my leg cramped up. So, yeah.
We got to get you the right electrolytes in your body.
Yeah.
You were lacking something.
Yeah.
Might have been it was probably potassium.
Possibly.
To be honest with you. That's what most people are lacking because they don't get it through their food or they don't supplement it either. Mama Prophet says, I'm here, Profiteers. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to the Quality Life, Mama Prophet. And T Mac is also in the house. He says, hello, quality people. Well, hello to you, Mama Mac. They're about to, get on the road and be officially moved to Florida here in a couple of days. So exciting times. And then you'll be all by your lonesome here in Georgia. Well, you're not alone. You got me and my mom, but they get it. All right. So, like I said, we got a wonderful, she says we did great in the tournament. Thank you.
Thanks.
We tried.
You're just saying that because you know us.
Yeah, you're supposed to say that. You're Kenya's mom, so your mom. But like I said, we got some great topics lined up for you. The title of today's stream is Change for Good. As you see, when God says no, right? Nobody likes to be told no by anybody, right? When we want something, we just want it. But sometimes God tells us no. Is that for our good, or is God playing with our emotions? We're going to dive into that here. First, let's get into it. Let me get this queued up. All right. When God says no, what do you do? Do you, just break down in a pity party like I can't have what I want? Or do you understand that he is actually working all things together for your good? Well, we got a wonderful short lined up for you, and it's going to be touching on what to do when God says no. Let's dive into it. What's up, quality people? When God says no, what do you do? We got a question. Amen. And that question is, what do you do when God tells us no? And so we're about to hop right into that. Before we hop into it, I need y'all to, because we're on a mission to spread some practical religion. Let's dive right into this short.
When God says no, we should thank him. I know somebody right now knows what I'm talking about. There are things that you prayed for that now that you look back, you're like, thank God you didn't give that to me.
Amen.
So now when God says no, don't get upset. Thank him.
Ooh, now that's pretty
Facts.
heavy. I know some people are like, they're like, oh no, say it ain't so. I want what I want. Like,
when I want it.
right, my
My
eyes,
way or the highway.
my eyes and my flesh want this so badly, but now what is best for me at the end of the day? And I think that is what God is always, laying before us, is what's best for us. He's saying go this path rather than going this path, even though I know that it's more appealing right here in this immediate moment to, tail off and go off over here because that's what everybody's doing, or that may be appealing to your flesh, to your desires. But he's saying, no, this is going to get you where you want to be ultimately. And so, I always use the stock market analogy. A lot of people want to just time the market or, get in to something that's going to make them rich all of a sudden. But if you're just consistent with your, putting money into the stock market and making smart choices over the long term, you'll have way more money than you would have if you just, hit big.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, even on a journey analogy, I guess, like, yeah, you could go the shortcut way, but if you go the scenic route, there's more added onto you in that way, rather than just going there, getting there quickly, things like that too. So, yeah.
Right. We're going to do a play-by-play. Before we do that, we're going to dive in and see what Shepherd Baptiste has to say.
Psalm chapter 66 verses 18 to 19. If I had cherished iniquity in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. But truly God has listened. He has given heed to the words of my prayer. When God tells us no, perhaps it's because we are misaligned with His will, because we are cherishing our iniquities. We must continually work to conform His to the image, and He will listen to our prayers.
Right. I mean, we must always actively, submit to God's will, right? Get rid of our iniquities, the things that we keep coming back to, that is sin, so that He can constantly shape us. Because when He's telling us no, maybe it's because our will and His will aren't aligning, right? And of course, our goal every day is to become more like Christ, to align more with His will. And so let's go through this short one more time, break it down, do maybe like a play-by-play. You tell me if you want to stop it. No, let me hold up.
When God says no, we should thank him. I know somebody right now knows what I'm talking about. There are things that you prayed for that now that you look back, you're like, thank God you didn't give that to me.
Hold up.
Is there something like that in your life where it's something that you were like, oh, I prayed for this and God was like, nah, I'm going to give you something different, or I'm not going to give that to you at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I was trying to get into the military, there's just there's so many blocks that happen in that whole process that I finally came to the realization, like, maybe this isn't the direction I'm supposed to go in. So then I pursued another direction, which was IT, cybersecurity stuff. And that just flowed so easily. It was crazy.
Wow.
So yeah, I definitely think no's can be an opportunity for redirection in your lives, realignment and things like that too. So.
No, I get it. I like that. That was a quality take right there. I think for me, one of my biggest ones, and my mom and I laugh about this all the time. When I was little, my mom was pregnant and I was praying for a girl. I wanted a sister so badly, so badly. And she was like, you just got to pray for it and maybe God will give it to you. So I got on my little hands and my little knees and I was like, God, please give me a little sister. And you know what he said? Oh no. He said, oh no, you getting a little brother. Turns out that is the biggest blessing, one of the biggest blessings in my life. He's like my best friend and we have a very good relationship. I got somebody to grow up with, to roughhouse with. So it made me, I got to do a bunch of boy stuff with him that, I maybe could have done with my sister, but not in the way that I was able to do it my brother. And so we really got to relate, and he got to learn from my mistakes. And, we both played baseball, which our parents didn't. So if he didn't have me as, kind of a role model in baseball, he may not have been as good as he was in the baseball, or he may not have even played baseball at all, because it wasn't something that was in our family. My mom probably would have made him run track, to be honest with you. So
does your dad run track too?
Yeah. So, and they probably would have been perfectly fine. He probably would have been a scholarship athlete anyway, because he's just just naturally talented. And so, yeah, everything works out. And so sometimes God telling us no, it could be as a result of our iniquities, but it could be because it's just not part of the better plan for our overall life. God can see, beyond what we can see. And it's the same thing with our parents too. It's like your parents should tell you no sometimes when you're a kid, because they have higher wisdom. And although they don't know the future, they know that, hey, you probably need to look both ways before you cross the road. You can't just be, just unaware of these things, or something bad may happen, or different things like that come up. And your parents have wisdom because they've lived more life. And so God is obviously older than all of us. He was there at the beginning. He will be there at the end. And so we should always trust in his ultimate plan, because he has the ultimate wisdom and guide for our life.
Yeah, not even just trust in it, because of course that plays a role, but I think going to him first too, before you even get to the point where it's like, oh, dang, it's a no. I think you go to him first, and you kind of like already have an idea if that would be even an option.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I like that. Let's check out some more of the short.
So now when God says no, don't get upset. Thank him.
Yes. So don't get upset. You should thank him. That's an interesting take. It's like, have you ever been told no by somebody, by your parents, by your friend, and been like, thank you?
Right.
Like right off the bat. Like, no. You generally, you're upset. You're a little mad. You're like, oh, why? Like, why would you tell me no? You're supposed to be my friend. You're supposed to be my mom. You're supposed to be my dad. You're supposed to be here for me.
Or even with like significant others, like if your significant other is like no, and you're like, I've never been told no before. I don't know what you're talking about. What is this word? No. Exactly.
But you should be grateful that somebody has the courage and the compassion for you to tell you no in certain circumstances, because that shows you that they're actually looking out for you and they have your best interest at heart. And so before we get into our points, let's hear what Lady Zipporah has to say.
Being told no is not always a bad thing. When we receive the answer no from God, that is an opportunity to receive protection and realignment to his will. It is better to be blocked from something than to find ourselves in a mess. Quality.
She said it. It's better to be blocked by something than to be in a mess. That goes into my point. Yeah, so there have been many times where God has told me no, and I'm grateful for all of them. Yes.
Are you gonna? You gotta talk into the mic.
I was talking into the mic.
Test,
I'm talking right now.
Oh yeah, I don't know why it's not switching correctly.
But there are many times that God told me no, and I'm grateful for all of them. And when we get no as our answer, it might be heartbreaking at first. Instead, use that as a time to be prayerful and seek what God wants us to do next.
Oh, okay. I must have put in the mics backwards, but yeah. So, I think that's a very good point, because it's a time to ask God, well, why'd you tell me no, right? You should thank him. Be like, okay, thank you for telling me no. All right, you're smarter than I am. Well, why? Reveal to me why that is. So for like you were like, oh, I'm going this military, right? God's like, no. Well, why don't I need to join the military? God, what do you have for me? All right. And if you're not open to that, you could be so callous that you miss what God has for you and you stay stuck for a very long time. So let's get into what Prince
Fan favorite
Avoda has to say.
Sometimes the desires of our heart don't align with the desire God has for us. This is why it is important to come to Christ and be made into a new creature, like it says in 2 Corinthians. This way your heart is continually transformed to be more like Christ, and your character will reflect it.
Right. Your character will reflect what is in your heart. Just like Prince of Oda says, that leads right into my point, which is God is always guiding us towards the better version of who we can be, the Christ improved version. So when he tells us no, it is because he has the foresight for what is best for us to step into who we were called to be. And so we should always, rethink when God tells us no, when things don't happen in life that we think should happen, that we prayed for, right? We need to, rethink and take on a new perspective. Perhaps we should be thanking God and diving deeper into why is it that you're telling me no? What do you have for me? Rather than being callous and being upset at God. Do you have any final words?
Oh, yeah. When you said God is always guiding us towards the better version of who we can be, I 100% agree with that. I also think it's up to us to decide to follow that guidance. And yeah, that's my final thought.
I like that. But that's just what we think. We want to know what you think. What do we do, or what should you do when God tells you no? We want to hear about that down in the comments section. If you're watching this replay, you're going to want to check out this video wherever it is on the screen, because that's what YouTube is recommending to you personally from us to you. We'll see you over there. We have a big announcement. As you guys know, we're now Quality Entertainment. And with that name change is coming some big changes to the channel. So, like I said before, we're gonna have all new shows, but some shows aren't even gonna include me, and they're not even gonna include Kenya. What we did was we went out and we recruited two of our closest friends, Miracle and Alan. And they're gonna have a great show that's gonna provide you with excellent value called Conscious Outlet. Let's meet them now.
Hey guys, welcome to the Conscious Outlet Podcast. We are officially a part of the Quality Entertainment Network, and we are so happy to be here. I'm Miracle Monique.
And I'm Alan J.
And we're here to discuss the intersection of culture, faith, media, so we can inspire some practical solutions to some huge societal challenges that we're facing today. So let's work together to get this done.
We are back, just like the soundtrack said, and we're about to have a quality time. Guys, thank you for joining us. T-Max in the house. She says, I loving the mugs. Thank you. Thank you for the mugs. They
Thank you
look
for
good.
the mugs, yes.
Tea tastes delicious. We're having a good time. Make sure you, because we're on a mission to spread some practical religion. T-Mac always also hit us with, God knows that there is something better. Mm-hmm. Amen to that. Amen to that. Mama Prophet's in the house. She says, yes, Josh, you were and are the best big brother. Oh, don't hype me up like that. Don't hype me up. Jake had the best role model of a man in you. Thank you. All glory to God there for shaping me and guiding my steps. Mama Prophet also hit us with the play the Prince again, put him on repeat.
We need some Zipporah fans.
You're gonna have to get more men to watch the live, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Aunt Cindy hit us with the hold on, it didn't send. There it is. He said, I second that motion. Y'all are too much.
Thirsty.
Y'all are too much. All right, let's see. Mayday's in the house.
Hey, Mayday.
Says, what is even going on here? Saying a quick hi and bye. Have a good stream.
Thanks for popping in.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, thanks for popping in. Hi and bye. We love Mayday there. T-Max also back in the house saying Zipporah is gorgeous.
I think so too.
There you go. There you go. We got a Zipporah compliment.
Compliment, yeah.
Maybe not at a fan level, but we got a Zipporah compliment. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to the show. Like I said, we have, title, topic, theme is change for good. So that is what we are going to be talking about. Let's get into our second topic, wicked hearts. Now, there's a lot of wickedness going on in the world, from just straight debauchery, and it's just right in our face on social medias now that we have the internet. So could it be that what we are consuming is a direct result of our wicked hearts? And how should we filter that? Well, that's what we are going to be exploring here in this segment. Let's get into it. Quality people.
I'm feeling this music.
We got some wicked hearts. And we're going to talk about it. We got a question, and that question is, how do we change the heart? How do we change it for the better, to be specifically? Before we dive into that, I need you to, because we're on a mission to spread some practical religion. We have a good short lined up for you here, and we're going to play it in its entirety, and then we're going to go back and do a play-by-play. Let's get into it.
Verse in the Bible that says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So when you see people talking, it's a reflection of what's inside. So the question is, how do you change your heart? How do you change your mind? Well, it's the sources of information that you listen to, the truth that you believe. So focus on developing self, and self will develop.
Focus on developing self, and self will develop. He had some good points there where he was talking about, like, well, what you consume is what bleeds out of you, in a sense, right? So, like, almost like you are what you eat type of thing.
Yeah. If you watch a bunch of trash TV, I mean, your actions might reflect what you watch on that trash TV, Like, if you watch Love and Hip Hop, you most likely
You might start emulating.
reflect Love and Hip Hop-esque behavior.
Yeah, I remember my parents had to ban me from watching SpongeBob when I was a kid.
Oh, my mom hated SpongeBob.
Because I started emulating SpongeBob a little too much and imitating him, and I guess doing the laugh, and that was very obnoxious to them, as well as maybe not the best character traits. And so they were like, yeah, you can't watch this for a little while. And
it's probably a good decision. Good
probably
job.
a good decision, yeah.
Good job.
Because, I mean, SpongeBob, classic, and I could watch it now and be perfectly fine because I have higher wisdom, but that's why you have, parents who are there who's supposed to guard you and guide you on, as you're being raised, as you're growing up, so that you are making wise decisions. There's things that you could consume now as an adult that you couldn't consume as a kid, or now that you are an adult, you have a better understanding of, oh wow, there's a lot of things in there that maybe I don't want, that I didn't catch, right? And maybe I shouldn't be showing that to my kid, because subconsciously as they grow up, it's like they start to connect, dots, and that's what kids are doing. They're always connecting dots, always emulating the behavior, and so what you consume is very important. And you know who I think also thinks that's very important?
Shepherd Baptiste.
Yes.
Psalm chapter 51 verse 10 says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and put a new and right spirit within me. What we seek we will find. What we consume we will become. Seek the wise counsel of God Almighty.
Yeah, so it's like Jesus was saying, hey, seek and you will find. And he's talking about, seek the kingdom of God, seek Christ, seek, the Father. But also the opposite is true, right? If you seek, debauchery, if you seek evil things, then, you will find yourself in evil things. Like you just said, if you are always constantly watching Love and Hip Hop and you're following all of the characters on there and all the people who are made up of the show, and you are just consumed by it, literally, then you're not consuming the content. The content has now consumed you, and you are now going to start becoming and emulating how those people act, which isn't the best person that you could be from a virtuous standpoint, from a just a person as a whole. And so that's why it's important to watch what you consume.
To add on to that, that's why it's also important to make sure, if there are things that you know that you consume on a daily basis or quite often. Like, even for me, like, I'll watch, the Millionaire Morning Show with Anton. I love that show. But lately it's been like, okay, maybe I should just take a step back from it and use that time with God or use that time to do something else. Because even though I think that show is a really good show,
Right.
and it's fruitful, but sometimes whatever we're consuming, we just need to break from and utilize that time differently.
Right. And also sometimes you just need variety. You need to switch it up. So like I
Yeah.
watch that show very often as well, but some mornings I don't watch it, or depending on some of the topics, I'll be like, I don't need to watch that. I'll, watch something that's more productive, or I will, watch something or productive as in like I watch something that's, about pickleball, or I watch something that's about editing, or that's, fruitful in my life. So I'll watch
Yeah.
something that's edifying spiritually, from like a Christian content creator, or, make sure that I'm always, catching up and reading the Bible and doing my devotions and everything like that. And so it's always good. And it's good that we have good people and good content to follow, but sometimes we got to evaluate ourselves as well and say, hey, like, I am, watching this person all the time, right? Are they, kind of becoming an idol in my life,
Yeah.
right? Are they a role model, or have they elevated themselves to an idol? And so can't get so enamored with people.
Right.
And so that leads us back into our question. How do we change the heart? And so the theme is we think that it's by what you consume. And so we're going to do a play-by-play of that short that you just saw just a little while ago. Here we go.
Verse in the Bible that says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So when you see people talking, it's a reflection of what's inside.
Yeah.
When you see people talking, it's a reflection of what's inside. And that reminds me, or that brings my attention to, like, when you see people just going crazy, acting ratchet out in public, and somebody's like, well, who hurt you?
Yeah.
Or that's a reflection of their trauma, or they'll say like my trauma. And oftentimes it is a true reflection of something that happened as a result of them growing up and them going through some sort of traumatic experience. And that just goes to show that you always have to constantly be working on yourself and letting good things into your spirit,
Yeah.
or you will reflect the bad things that have happened to you and the bad habits and patterns that you have created over time.
Yeah, you can't heal trauma with extra trauma.
Right, right.
You got to heal it with goodness and fruitfulness and things like that.
Fruitfulness and
Yeah.
holiness and
Yes,
things,
all of that.
and things that
Which
are
comes from
making you
Jesus.
more whole. Yes, directly from Jesus. Let's continue.
So the question is, how do you change your heart? How do you change your mind? Well, it's the sources of information that you listen to, the truth that you believe. So focus on developing self, and self will develop.
Man, I love that. It's the source of information that you listen to, and the truth that you believe is a direct reflection of the character that you become. And I think that's great. And we're about to get into our points. Before we do that, we're going to hear what Lady Zipporah has to say.
Whatever you consume through your ears and eyes, you will regurgitate through your mouth. Consume what you want to reflect.
Yeah, and straight into my point there, or in my opinion, I think self-awareness and humility are the key to changing your heart, changing the heart. You cannot change if you do not think you need improving. So, like the guy said in the video, he said, what, chase self or go to self?
Right. If
Something
you
like that.
basically, if you work on self, I forgot what he said. Basically,
Something about like you work on self and then
yourself will improve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, you do that. And if that's something that you struggle with, like just being self-aware, self-improvement, things like that, being humble, I think that's something that we should be prayerful about. So that's my point.
I definitely agree. And somebody else that would agree is Prince of Oda. So this one is for
The ladies.
for the moms.
What you feed your soul matters.
Just like what you feed your body matters. Are you feeding your soul fast food content, or are you a hearer and therefore a doer of the word?
Yeah. So are you feeding yourself good and healthy content? I mean, it's just like what you put into your body. It matters, right? And we're learning that now because we're, back on this health kick. My mom's, she's back, training for her track, and she's playing kickball now and everything. And so we're constantly monitoring, what we put into our body so that we can perform at the optimal level, at the best that we can be. And so what you put into your body matters. And we've learned that
matters a lot
over, the course of, really over the course of the last year, but really been diving deep into it over the last couple weeks here. But it's the same thing with your soul. What you put into your soul, what you feed yourself spiritually matters as well. And sometimes you can get a little hit of that fast food, but that can't be your full diet. Like Love and Hip Hop, right? You can watch it maybe every now and then, right? You can watch some seasons of it, but then you also, that can't be like your daily go-to, right? Your daily go-to's got to be something that's actually edifying to your soul. Right. And so that leads into my point here. Watch your thoughts, words, actions, and habits, because they shape your character, and that leads to your destiny. And so I have let me pull up this PowerPoint really quick. So my point comes from this quote that I really, really like, and it is by Frank Jackson. So I'm going to pull it up on the screen for you here. And it says, watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. And so it starts with your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you filter your thoughts? And you can filter your thoughts based on, what you are seeing every single day, like what you are consuming. It kind of goes back to that. And so not only do you need to be, fixing your mind on things that are pure, things that are holy, things that are, good, things that are excellent, but you also need to be consuming things of that nature as well. And so that's what we think. We want to know what you think. How do we change the hearts of wicked men and wicked women? We want to know. If you're watching the replay, somewhere on the screen, there's a video from YouTube to you from us that you're going to love. We will see you over there. Let's talk about the relationship between the player and the team. So the player and their coach, their player and their teammates as well. So how much of it is the player needs to adapt to the team, and how much of it is the player needs to be a good fit for the team?
I would say a better fit will work better, because I teach this too in my class, like Tuckman's model, like team dynamics and team cohesion are so important. It doesn't matter if it's like your colleagues or sports, etc. Like you can have, whenever one new person comes onto a team or they're coming into a workplace, the dynamics shift. So you could have someone with like a stronger personality come in and they're taking over and everybody's thrown off. The team dynamics shift. And that's why I say it would be important for that person to like be on a team where it makes sense for them and it fits for them, as opposed to like shifting the team dynamics for that person, because that's when you have like the conflicts in relationships. And I would say like another thing that we talked about is like it's 80% relationships, like 20% encouragement when it comes to team dynamics, because like relationships outweigh performance every time. Like you can't perform well if you don't have positive, nurturing relationships, especially if you're doing in highly interactive sport. If you're doing more of an individual sport, it won't matter as much. But if you got like basketball team, etc., those teams need to have really strong cohesion.
Yeah, in chemistry. Yeah. No, that's good. Kenya and I watch a YouTuber who always says, like, your network is your net worth. So the people that you associate with and the people that you connect with will be the reflection of, you know, your net worth, basically, how well you can do economically. And the more people that you connect with, the more you can rise economically. We are back. Change for good. That's a fact. Well, I hope it's a fact for you, because that's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to spit some bars out here. I'm trying to spit some bars. Mama Prophet's in the house. She says, real talk. Calming those thoughts and emotions is a chore. What works for me is gospel music, a good sermon, or a good hard workout. Quality people, make sure you, because we're on a mission to spread some practical religion. Hey, we have a new person that just joined the chat. Let's welcome Mark Mack.
Hello, Father.
That is Kenya's father. Thank you for tuning in. Prophet also said that she can't watch Love and Hip Hop. Not appealing at all. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
I can't watch it anymore.
I don't think I've ever actually seen like a full episode of Love and Hip Hop, or really any of the shows in hip hops, or any of the ball players and wives, or I haven't seen any of that, because I've seen like some of the promotions or the clips, and
it's just ratchet.
That's not for me. That's just that's for y'all.
You're not the target audience there.
Yeah, I'll go watch something else, because I mean, I think some of y'all might be struggling from the mental health crisis, which we're about to talk about now. Mental health crisis solved? I don't know. Yeah, that's not supposed to be there. Let's see. Hold on.
Amen.
Okay,
there you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, so yeah, mental health crisis solved. Yeah, just ignore the U.S. women's national team gets unfair pay. We'll just ignore that right now. So, but the mental health crisis, has it been solved? Well, NPR did a piece where, and this is from 2017, so it was from a while ago, but I think it's very relevant to, you know, Gen Zs always seem to struggle with mental health. They're like the most depressed generation. Why? And maybe NPR, based on this article, thinks that it's because of loss of psychiatric hospitals. Could that be? Well, we're going to explore that. We're going to go through the article right now. We got that groovy music again. And we got a question. And that question is, has the loss of psych wards led to a crisis? What say you?
I don't think so.
Well, before we dive deep into our points in this article, I need you to, because we're on a mission to spread some practical religion, we're going to dive into this article right about now. It says, has the loss of U.S. psychiatric hospitals led to a mental health crisis? So you said you don't think so.
No.
What do you think has led to a mental health crisis?
I think it's social media, and people don't know themselves. And not even don't know themselves, they don't know God.
Okay.
So, and God gives us purpose. So I think it's that.
Okay. Now, do you think that the loss of psychiatric hospitals has played a role?
I mean, I do think that that's interesting to think about, not having hospitals specifically for mental issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see how that would overflow into like homelessness and people on the streets and things like that. So I would say it could play a role.
No, I absolutely agree. Let's dive into this article here and see what NPR has to say. So it says, how the loss of U.S. psychiatric hospitals led to, or how the loss of U.S. psychiatric hospitals led to mental health crisis. So It says a severe shortage of inpatient care for people with mental illness is amounting to a public health crisis as the number of individuals struggling with a range of psychiatric problems continue to rise. The revelation that the gunman in the Sutherland Springs, Texas church shooting escaped from a psychiatric hospital in 2012 is renewing concerns about the state of mental health care in this country. A study published in the journal Psychiatric Services estimates 3.2% of Americans, more than 8 million people, suffer from serious psychological problems. And so, right off the bat, it seems that this is more of dealing with the crisis of like homeless people, because you often hear a lot of people that are out on the street have or are going through a mental health sort of issue.
Yeah.
And even if you provide them and give them, shelter or give them some sort of asylum, their problems still are there when, they're released back on their own. They just go back to being out on the street and causing problems because there's no where for them to go that's actually helping them to overcome those struggles. It's like you're giving them a tool that they're not able to use because it's not the right tool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or at least not yet.
Yeah, I would say so far my thought is I think this is more related to homelessness rather than like Gen Z depression issues.
Yeah, I would agree. The disappearance of long-term care facilities and psychiatric beds has escalated over the past decade, sparked by a trend towards deinstitutionalization of psychiatric patients in the 1950s and 60s, says Dominic Sisti, director of Scattergood Program for Applied Ethics of Behavioral Health Care at the University of Pennsylvania. State hospitals began to realize that individuals who were there probably could do well in the community.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that is an interesting take.
And realize? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, well,
how did you realize that?
Yeah, how did you come to that realization? That's very interesting. He tells Here and Now, Jeremy Hobson, it was well intended, but what I believe happened over the past 50 years is that there's been such an evaporation of psychiatric therapeutic spaces that now we lack a sufficient number of psychiatric beds. And so now that they've kind of gotten rid of the hospitals, there's not many places for these people to go, and the places where they can go are filled up always. And so even if you're going through a struggle and there's a place for you to go that's, in your immediate vicinity that you can be sent to, they're filled up. It's kind of like when we had the pandemic and all the hospitals were filled up. So they were like, don't come to the hospitals.
Yeah.
We can't take you.
Yeah.
If it's not,
Stay
if you're
home.
not about to, kick it, don't come to the hospital.
Yeah.
So it's very unfortunate, but that's kind of, and this is from, I believe, 2017. And so it's very concerning.
Yeah, I wonder, I could be wrong, but I thought the whole reason why psychiatric hospitals kind of like went on the decline was because one, cost, and two, because there's like a lot of abuse going on in them. Stuff. This is a guess theory.
It's just a thought. So, Aunt Cindy says, yes, it definitely opened the floodgates. I work with them throughout the week. There aren't enough mental health workers to intervene in this country. Man.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's like these people obviously need health. Why aren't there enough? I think this article is going to touch on it in a little bit. Mom Prophet says, the absence of God, the prevalence of drug use, and social media are the culprits of the mental health crisis. Psychiatric hospitals are at the end of the chain. Ooh, that is a very interesting take there. And so she's saying like, oh, the absence of God, the culture is becoming more degenerate and more atheist in nature. And we're seeing a result of that because people aren't being cared for in the way that they should be. It's like, I heard an interesting quote, said capitalism has no conscience. And if capitalism is over God, right, the love of money and the love of business and success is over virtue and goodness, well then, of course, they're going to chase that rather than, helping thy neighbor.
That's why everything has a proper order.
Hey, amen to that.
Amen.
All right, so it says a concerted effort to grow community-based care options that were less restrictive grew out of the civil rights movement, and a series of scandals due to the lack of oversight in psychiatric care, Sisti says. While those efforts have been successful for many, a significant group of people who require structured and patient care can't get it, often because of funding issues. Man, that's also very sad because these people obviously are going through something and don't necessarily have the means to help themselves at this point. And if there was ever any funding that needed to be given, it should probably be given to these people to help them get back on their feet, and with the idea of them becoming, more productive citizens rather than giving out free phones to people in the ghetto.
That's a good analysis. So,
All right. So it says a report, or a 2012 report by the Treatment Advocacy Center, a nonprofit organization that works to remove treatment barriers for people with mental illness, found the number of psychiatric beds decreased by 14% from 2005 to 2010. That year, there were 50,509 state psychiatric beds, meaning there were only 14 beds per 100,000 people.
That's tough.
Yeah, that's tough. Many times, individuals who really do require intensive psychiatric care find themselves homeless or more in prison, Sisti says. Much of our mental health care now for individuals with serious mental illness has been shifted to correctional facilities. And so now it's like, yeah, we'll care for you, but after we throw you into prison, which is kind of crazy.
I don't even think they took care of them that well in prison either.
Yeah, it's like, because, yeah, I can't really even speak to that, because I think I don't know. I'm not really educated on that in that sense. So the percentage of people with serious mental illness in prison rose from 0.7%, 0.7, less than 1%, in 1880, well, that was 1880, to 21% in 2005. And so, I mean, is that like a significant increase over like 100 years? I mean, it is a significant increase because it's like you're constantly going up. It's like hopefully that it trends downward at some point. But
yeah.
It is over 100 years. To Center for Prisoner Health and Human Rights. Many of the private mental health hospitals still in operation do not accept insurance and can cost upwards of $30,000 per month. What? Sisti says, for many low-income patients, Medicaid is the only path to mental health care, but a provision in the law prevents the federal government from paying for long-term care in an institution. Of course, yeah. All right, let's see if we can hit some highlights. I think we're almost done here. Okay, yeah. So, as a result, many people who experience a serious mental health crisis end up in emergency rooms, according to the data from the National Hospital Ambulatory Medical Care Survey between 2001 and 2011. 6% of all emergency department patients had a psychiatric condition. Nearly 11% of those patients required transfer to another facility, but there are often no beds available. Yeah, that's really sad because it's like these are people, like there's a lot of people that go to the hospital that don't necessarily need to go to the hospital. They might go for like a paper cut and, it's like the doctor's like, here's a Band-Aid, or,
He's just a road
things that aren't as serious. And then things that are serious and that require, them to actually be transferred somewhere, they can't get the treatment because there's, no available. Yeah, it's not available. So that's really sad to hear. We are the wrong site for these patients, Dr. Thomas Chun, an associate professor of emergency medicine and pediatrics at Brown University, told NPR last year. Our crazy, chaotic environment is not a good place for them. I mean, I would imagine like sirens going off, people just in, agony and in extreme pain in the emergency room. And then you place somebody that's going through like a mental episode. It's like, that's not the place for them. It's definitely not the place for them. They need to be in a calm environment where they can, get the right type of care and treatment. Most hospitals are unable to take care of people for more than 72 hours, Sisti explained. So patients are sent back out into the world without adequate access to treatment. In order to bridge the gap between hospital stays and expensive community-based care options, Sisti argues for a continuum of care that ranges from outpatient care and transitional type housing situations to inpatient care. While President Trump and others have claimed a connection exists between mental illness and the rise in gun violence, most mental health professionals vehemently disagree. There is no real connection between an individual with a mental health diagnosis and mass shooting. That connection, according to all experts, doesn't exist, says Bethany Lilly of Bazelon Center for Mental Health Law. Yeah, I mean, I think those people who, decide to end a crowd, essentially, I think those people are just evil, and whether they're of sane mind or not. So I can understand that, because I mean, evil's going to be evil, whether it's knowingly evil or whether it's going through some type of episode. So Sisti says that the stigma around mental health is systematized in our healthcare system more so than in the public view. Healthcare providers are rather leery about these individuals because these people are often, at least according to the stereotype, high-cost patients who maybe are difficult to treat or non-compliant, he says. I think the stigma that we should be really focused on and worried about actually emerges out of our healthcare system more than from the public. Okay. It's very sad because they're like, hey, these patients, they cost too high for our bottom line, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so they're bad for business. And so we're not really going to worry about them. And so going back to what it said earlier in the article where, these institutions started disappearing in around the 1950s and 60s, could it be because they weren't profitable as businesses, and the way to stay relevant and to stay afloat in our capitalistic society is to, increase your bottom line year over year. And so in this case,
I know why.
Oh, go ahead.
So the reason why mental institutions closed was too many people who were institutionalized for mental disorders suffered abuse, neglect, and mistreatment. Governor Reagan signed an act in 1967 that put an end to the practice of institutionalizing patients against their will. So that would happen a lot too.
Oh, yeah, because it kind of happened with Britney Spears where they were just like, I don't think she was necessarily institutionalized against her will. She may have been, but she was definitely, she had somebody, I forgot what the correct term for it, but
guardianship.
Yeah, who basically was making decisions for her and over her life. And so she had to get out of that situation. And so I guess that law was going to stop things like that from happening, where people could, institutionalize people who didn't necessarily... Law? What they were talking about with
this is
Governor
1967.
But they were talking about that was from Governor Reagan, right?
Yeah.
It's still in effect today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what the law was referring to.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's sad that, maybe business has played a part in the rise of the mental health crisis. Now, do we think that the closing of, psychiatric hospitals, going back to our question, has led to the mental health crisis? Maybe more sort of homelessness. But as far as like Gen Z and some of these other generations being or reporting to be so sad, I think it has more to do with, the internet in social media, and that's causing them
Loneliness.
yeah, that's causing them to be lonely, and it's causing them to have this never ending and perpetual fear of missing out, or FOMO. And so because of that, they're always looking for the next high on social media, the next thing to get into. And I think that is dangerous for our society. But that's just what we think. We want to know what you think. So let us know down in the comment section. We'll be right back if you're in the live chat for our last segment. We have a big announcement. As you guys know, we're now Quality Entertainment. And with that name change is coming some big changes to the channel. So, like I said before, we're going to have all new shows, but some shows aren't even going to include me. They're not even going to include Kenya. What we did was we went out and we recruited two of our closest friends, Miracle and Alan. And they're going to have a great show that's going to provide you with excellent value called Conscious Outlet. Let's meet them now.
Hey guys, welcome to the Conscious Outlet Podcast. We are officially a part of the Quality Entertainment Network, and we are so happy to be here. I'm Miracle Monique.
And I'm Alan J.
And we're here to discuss the intersection of culture, faith, media, so we can inspire some practical solutions to some huge societal challenges that we're facing today. So let's work together to get this done.
We are back. Change for good, because it's good for ya. We got some quality comments from some quality people. Research also indicates that Gen Zers are currently the most stressed demographic of people. American Psychological Association reports that 90% of Gen Z experience psychological or physical symptoms as a result of stress in the last year.
I mean, the opposite of stress is peace, and they're missing the peace of Jesus.
Like for the algorithm. I need y'all to like for the algorithm for that one. Thank you, T-Mac, for the wonderful, wonderful comment. She also hit us back with, back in the day, being in a psychological facility was truly a horrible place to be. The experiments that were done back then were inhuman. So I forgot about the experiments. Yeah, there's things on both sides of the fence. So it's like that was a place where were supposed to be able to seek asylum, but then they weren't because there's all sorts of craziness going on. Yeah. And so that's something that we missed out on. We missed as far as our analysis there. So thank you for that. All right, we have our last topic for today, and it's, I don't know why those got switched around. Okay, let's just go here. The U.S. women's national team gets unfair pay, but in a good way. You know, they've had an early exit from the World Cup, and with leaders like Megan Rapinoe, she's constantly been a face for fighting for women's rights and, equal pay, and they got equal pay. And so we're going to be breaking down the fact that they generated only about $3 million, but their payout is actually going to be around $7 million. And get this, their male counterparts, the men's national team, actually agreed to this. And so is this a good thing or is it a bad thing, or should we even care about it? We're going to break that down right about now. All right, the U.S. team gets unfair pay, but in a good way. And we got a question for you. Actually, I don't think we have a question on this. Is this just a good thing, right? They generate $3 million. They're going to get paid $7 million. Before we answer that, though,
do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, do you agree or disagree? Tell us in the comments. But on your way down there, make sure you... for the algorithm. Because we're on a mission. Spread some practical religion, some Christ improvement into your life. Let's get into this article. It says that the U.S. women's national team generated $3.25 million in revenue, but will take home over $7 million in equal pay revenue split with men's team. So that's a very interesting number because normally they have this eat what you kill mentality in our society. Also, if the reverse were true, would people be complaining that, why should the men get, $7.2 million if they only generated 3.25? Or is this, just something that is being, praised and celebrated because it was, the women who get the, I guess the big end of the stick instead of the short end. So it says the U.S. women national team financial numbers are in, and the women are due for a big payday despite an early exit from the Women's World Cup. Last year, the U.S. Soccer Federation, the U.S. women's national team, and the U.S. men's national team came to an agreement that the women's and men's team would split their revenues equally after the U.S. recouped their fees. The main reason for the historic deal was because everyone felt that FIFA's pay structure was unfair to women. U.S. Soccer's women national team and the men's team came together. Okay, that's there. According to Sportico's Emily Caron, the U.S. women's national team will take home $7 million despite bringing in $3.2 million in revenue, thanks to the newly formed revenue split. Some U.S. women's national team math. The U.S. will take home $3.2 million for its round of 16 exit. That'll be added to the $13 million that the men earned in Qatar. 10% of the $16.25 million total will go to U.S. Soccer. The remaining $14.625 million will be shared equally between both squads. And so we're going to ask y'all, you think that's fair or do you think it's not? Kenya, what do you think?
I don't.
Explain why.
I mean, I just think you get what you work for, And I think if there's more people that watch the men's one because they find it more entertaining, okay, they deserve the revenue that came from it. And the same with the women's. The people that like to go watch the women's soccer team, that's the revenue you get from it. I don't know. I just don't think it should necessarily be like, oh, we don't get as much revenue as you, so we should split it.
Right.
I mean, it's a business,
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess in this case, FIFA is like, hey, you basically what you generate, we're just going to give it to you, and that's what you can get paid, right? And now, granted, I think total it's about $298,000 per player. So regardless, everybody's getting paid pretty well. So even if the women split if they were only splitting $3.25 million, they wouldn't be getting paid nearly as much. And so I guess going back to what you said, it's very interesting that, hey, the men were able to basically carry the load in this sense, but they're going to get, less pay. Now, the opposite was true, I believe, the last time the teams played. So if this deal was in place last time, I think the women actually generated more than the men because the men didn't even make the World Cup at all. And so they ended up generating more. And so I'm not sure what the payout numbers were for that or what the payout numbers were for that, but the women would have gotten or did get and receive more the last time because they played longer, they won the World Cup, and the men didn't even
if
make
it's
it.
flipped like that, I'm just like, okay,
yeah, it's fine.
They made it to the World Cup.
Yeah,
you get the revenue that came from making it to the World Cup.
I mean, yeah, there's no other sport that's like, hey, I know I play on a team with LeBron and I'm not as good as LeBron, but you should be paying me the same as LeBron
because we're on the same team.
We're on the same team. We're both men, right? And we should be paid. It's like, no, LeBron obviously deserves to be paid more than everybody else because he's the best player on the field. He has experience. He's proven, right? And he's generally healthy and he's won championships. And so that's why we're paying him this money. Or going to something maybe more females can relate to, Taylor Swift, right, isn't going to make, is going to make, should and deserves to make more than somebody who opens up for her that's a male.
Yes.
Right? Or even a female, because she's the headline act. And so if you're able to headline something, which is purely based on the attention that you can garner, right, then you deserve to get paid more, right? It's like every other business kind of understands that. And then you have the women's national team, and that seems to just kind of go over their head. Now, granted, they win big on an international level, right? And they feel like they didn't get paid as much as they should have. But the reality is, not as many people are tuning in, and so there's not as much money to give out because not as much money came in as a result of, the women playing is just not as popular. A lot of more people don't tune in. More people tune in to, watch men play.
Yeah. So. I just feel like it goes back to the whole participation trophy thing, in my opinion.
Explain.
Where it's like, oh, you get a trophy, you get a trophy. Everyone gets a trophy because we all played the same game. Rather than, okay, you have gold, you have silver, you have bronze. Because you earned gold, silver, and bronze, So.
T-Mac has a comment. She says they should get paid just as much as the men. That just like in women's basketball, the men get more.
I disagree.
Yes. So, like in women's basketball, so in basketball, men will sell out the arena. And in women's basketball, they don't sell the same arenas because they'll play at the same arena. Or if they do sell out at a women's game, the cost per ticket isn't as high, so they don't generate as much revenue. And so that's the reason why they can't get paid more, because one, people aren't tuning in to the women's games at a large enough volume for them to, they can't even justify paying them more, right? It's not a matter of justification. It's that they can't physically pay them more unless they subsidize, like, basically what's happening here and combine everything and then just pay everybody kind of equally, which I think is kind of a big mistake because it's two different businesses being run. Like the Atlanta Hawks is a different business than the Atlanta Dream Team, right? Even though I believe they're owned by the same person. I think Arthur Blank owns both of them in the Falcons, but I could be wrong there. But they're two different businesses, and then for you to combine them and say, okay, well, they're in the same town. And it's kind of like what the NCAA did with Title IX, which actually I think Title IX is a good thing as far as NCAA, but sometimes it just kind of gets out of hand. Because I remember in school one year, our speakers busted, like our stadium speakers. And so like when you played music, you hear the bzzz, just outlandish just noise coming out. And so we got it fixed. But when we got it fixed, they had to go, I think we got slightly better speakers or something like that. But when we got new speakers, the softball team had to get new speakers because they had to be even between, sports, right? And I was like, their speakers work perfectly fine. And it's not like these speakers, I don't even think necessarily the speakers were better. I think we just had to have the same speakers or something like that. So it's kind of something crazy because their speakers work perfectly fine. And obviously speakers aren't cheap or free. And so the school ended up having to pay for 2 sets of speakers because they had to be compliant with Title IX. And so I do think when it comes to as far as like facility upkeep, the men and women at the same school should have, same or similar facilities, right? It should be both, one, being able to facilitate them and get them ready to perform at their best level. And that should be pretty even at a base level among sports. But if, men win, or even if women win and they generate all this income, they should be able to, exceed that base level, right? And so if you're running a business or if you work for a business, right, and a man and a woman are at the same level right? Base salary, they should get paid exactly the same, right? I definitely agree with that. But if there's bonuses involved, like commission, right?
Yeah.
And whoever outperforms the other should, obviously take home more at the end of the day. So if the woman, outperforms the male or the man over a quarter or over whatever period, she should obviously take home more, and vice versa. So that's just
I agree.
That's how I feel. All right, let's continue with this interview. After fans reacted to her analysis, Carone pointed out that the men's team agreed to equal pay deal and would have benefited from it in years past when they didn't qualify for the World Cup. And so, yeah, this is when I agree with, like, when we ask the question, like, is this fair? And from just like a general perspective, it's like, no, it doesn't seem fair. But the men did sign up for it. So it's like,
they did.
Okay, you're kind of getting.
They signed either way.
Yeah, it's like, well, you signed it. You got to honor the contract,
Yeah.
And so it is fair from that perspective, from a legal, processing perspective. Definitely agree that it was fair there. All right, so that's just Carone explaining her side there, and that is the end of the article. So that's what we think. We want to know what you think. U.S. Women's National Team gets unfair pay. In a good way. Is it good? Is it bad? Do you agree with, how this pay structure is, or do you disagree? Right? Let us know down in the comments. If you're here and you like this video, somewhere on the screen, there's another video recommended from YouTube to you, from us. We will see you over there. And, yeah. Peace. We have a big announcement. As you guys know, we're now Quality Entertainment. And with that name change is coming some big changes to the channel. So, like I said before, we're gonna have all new shows, but some shows aren't even gonna include me, and they're not even gonna include Kenya. What we did was we went out and we recruited two of our closest friends, Miracle and Alan. And they're gonna have a great show that's gonna provide you with excellent value called Conscious Outlet. Let's meet them now.
Hey guys, welcome to the Conscious Outlet Podcast. We are officially a part of the Quality Entertainment Network, and we are so happy to be here. I'm Miracle Monique.
And I'm Alan J.
And we're here to discuss the intersection of culture, faith, media, so we can inspire some practical solutions to some huge societal challenges that we're facing today. So let's work together to get this done.
We are back. Hey, we got to talk about this Conscious Outlet thing.
Yeah.
As you saw, the promo is run 3 times.
New show,
We got a new show coming. And ain't none of y'all put it in the comments. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, no one asked about it.
And just for that, your punishment is to...
Like for the algorithm.
You better hit that like button. Push this out to everybody, because a new show is coming. It's called...
A Conscious Outlet.
The Conscious Outlet is with our good friends Miracle
And
Alan, which is her significant other. And they came down a couple weeks ago to do some promo stuff, shoot a little pilot, and it went well. They had a good flow. They had a good energy about them. Mm-hmm. And this show is going to be amazing. It's going to be on fire. They got some stuff that they're planning. They just got to get their schedules aligned and, get their first live episode planned. And then they will be streaming along with a quality pod, along with Faith and Beyond, along with Profitable Conversations, streaming right along in the menu of shows that we have here. And so we're lined up to have some quality entertainment. That's why we changed this to Quality Entertainment, because it's not just going to be us entertaining you and giving you commentary that is aiming you towards Christ improvement. Now we're adding our friends. We're adding our, people our network, people who are talented and who can provide value to you as well. Before we talk further about that, we're going to get into some comments from our last segment. Hold up. All right, so Aunt Cindy says WNBA is different. They don't draw as much attention on the courts, which is true. But also the same is true with women's soccer. So that's why even though the women, won the World Cup, right? World Cup is a big event, but it's the huge event for men. And so even teams that don't win for men, just to make it to the World Cup, you're going to get a large payout because there's so much attention globally.
So many fans.
Yeah, globally that tune into the men's more so than the women's, even though the women's is still a global sports. I mean, there's still countries where I think there's teams that don't even send women's teams because of, just different laws, and women may not even be allowed to showcase their talents in that way in those countries, that's sad, and that shouldn't happen. But that's kind of the reality. And so, let's see. T-Max says, I just have to say, the women play their butts off. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they do.
They have wonderful talent, but also
it goes back to the business.
Yeah, just from a business perspective, it just doesn't make sense. They don't generate, the amount of revenue that men generate in the same sport or a congruent sport like baseball to softball. So that's why there's no Major League Softball that's broadcasted on ESPN that has its own channel. Like Major League Softball is almost like a hobby thing. Like people will go play it in the summer, and then a lot of those girls are like teachers, right? And they'll play for a couple of years. Some of them can make a good living off of it and maybe start like a softball academy, but it's not a sustainable career. You have to have something outside of it because it
doesn't have the viewership.
It doesn't have the draw, right? They even if you sell out your games, they're not selling out big stadiums like a major league stadium. They're selling out like a softball stadium. And then you got to think about what it takes to run a game. You got to pay for people who do concessions, who work the event. You got to make sure the venue costs are covered. Like you ran lights, you ran electrical, you got to pay for Wi-Fi, and you got to pay the production team that streams out the game. And then you also got to play players. And so by the time you shave off all the costs, you don't have that much to shave players if you're not generating enough revenue and enough viewerships. Whereas, in Major League Baseball, they're selling out, 30,000 people stadiums, especially if you're a good team, which is why the Oakland A's are actually leaving, because they're not generating revenue in Oakland. And so they're like, we got to leave town or this ain't going to work, right? And so they're moving to Las Vegas, and they'll be the Las Vegas Athletics. And so everything, it breaks it back down to the money, to business. And that's generally how and why people get paid what they get paid. But if the roles, or if things were equal, right, as far as like revenue being generated and attention being garnered, then I would definitely agree. If women were getting paid less, I would be here, shouting like, hey, like this ain't fair. Something's fishy in the water. Y'all need to pay these women. But that's just not the reality. So let's get back to some conscious outlets. T-Max says, can't wait for the show. I mentioned it above. Glad they are joining the quality show. Yeah, I like it. Cindy also says, I shared this show to Facebook. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it. Hopefully we got some new people in here. Oftentimes people are scared to, join the live chat, especially when you ladies are giving it your all in there. It could probably be a little intimidating, but we thank you for sharing it. Make sure that you share this with your family and friends because, like I said, we got some shows coming down the pipeline. And speaking of that, we have a schedule. We are back. When we will be back. We're at 613 subscribers. as of today. We lost one earlier, but we gained it back during the show. So thank you for sharing it. 1,000 is the goal, like always. So we'll be back on Wednesday at some point. It'll probably be a later stream, if I had to guess. Yeah, probably be a later stream. And then we'll be back on Friday as well with a quality pod for both of those. And then Saturday, we have a special Faith and Beyond episode. Tell us who's the guest. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, our guest is going to be Miracle from The Conscious Outlet. I will be interviewing her about her journey, her testimony, and some new age stuff as well. So
I like
should
that.
be a good show.
And so if you're not familiar with who Miracle is, I actually interviewed her on Profitable Conversations, I believe in June, or maybe it was May, somewhere around there. But I interviewed her. You can go, look up that episode. And we talked about, things that aren't going to be covered with Kenya, right?
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about her faith journey, but not as much. We talked more about, artificial intelligence and, overcoming some of the things as far as, mentally and spiritually, but we didn't talk about our actual faith walk and journey. So that episode on Saturday, you're going to want to catch live because it's going to be live and it's going to be fun. Yep. And so also, continue sharing this to Facebook. We're thinking about, streaming to Facebook as well on occasions for specific shows. And so, you sharing to Facebook does mean a lot to us, and hopefully we can get some, Facebook viewership and comments to be added to the YouTube viewership and comments moving forward on specific shows on specific days. So we will let you know when, there's specific Facebook shows that will be, streamed, I guess. I lost the word in the ether. But yeah, that is what's coming. Wednesday, Quality Pod, Friday, Quality Pod, and Saturday, Faith and Beyond. So this has been fun. I've had a good time. Cindy says only 87 more to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, to get to, that's the 700. We're trying to get to 1,000. We're trying to get to 1,000. Wow. So we got 387 to go. Yeah, 387 to go. So
Light work.
yeah, light work. Hey, make sure you share this with your family and friends. T-Max says, awesome show. Have a blessed week, everyone. I think that's where we will end it. This has been a fun show. Have a great week. We will see you on Wednesday.
Thanks for coming.
I am just so grateful for the grind now. Even all the bad that almost took me out. Everything will pay off in due time now. All my past has led me to be great now. I am just so grateful for the grind now. Even all the bad that almost took me out. Everything will pay off in due time now. All my past has led